There we go. Record on this computer. There we go. Underway. All right, everybody, following our journey about what is a soul, and we'll carry on with that. Just make sure my phone is off. It is. See you in an hour-ish.
Good sleep.
Good sleep. If there are questions, please go back to Brandon. If there are, you can be the coordinator, and I'll see you in an hour. So in a short while, I will open to questions regarding the topic that we have been speaking about for a while. But first, I will recap some of the key points. And I do apologize that this is a topic that cannot be spoken about in too much of a light way. It is a deep and big topic. What is a soul? As a consequence, it cannot always be answered simplistically, but we have done our best. You could imagine a soul as one corner of an ocean. Of course, an ocean cannot have a corner. But there is a perception that there is an individual aspect to an ocean. And if you think of your world, there is only one ocean. Yet you call it Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Southern, and many other names according to where it is. There is no difference in the ocean in terms of its capability to create or hold life, and then also take life away. It reacts in the same way it does in every part of the world. But it is affected by local circumstance. So the ocean within the tropics is warm. The ocean at the extremes of the planet is cold. And at the extremes, it may even freeze and become solid for just a brief period of time. But even then, you call it frozen ocean. This is exactly the same as consciousness, the oversoul, if you wish, the great soul. Consciousness in its pure state. It just believes that in one corner it is an individual and is called Indian Ocean or some other name. It is the same, if you like, by calling humanity. Humanity being another way of describing the great soul or consciousness, and then you have individual forms all around the planet. Indian, French, Chinese. And each individual, of course, reacts to local environment. We will talk more on the way you have your body in a while. But every part of the ocean has the same capabilities as every other part. And if you were able to isolate just one corner of an ocean, as I have said, it has all the capabilities of the whole ocean. you have all the capabilities of every other person. You may choose to use them, or you may choose not to use them. But the capability is there, dormant or not. So there is no one who has an ability that the others also do have. It is available to everyone. Now, this is an important point, because often you may perceive that you cannot do something. So it is your perception that is in error, not in the reality. Again, we'll address this in bigger detail in a moment. So are there any questions anybody would like to ask or need any clarification on regarding this topic?
I don't see any questions anyone wishes to ask at this time, Ignatius.
Well, let us continue then. And now I will hand you over to the other communicator who is undertaking this topic. And I will return at the end. Have you ever noticed that whatever you got going on the inside of you, you see on the outside of you? So if you've got a bit of anger on the inside, eventually you'll see all these angry people around you. If you're feeling at peace, then the world will be at peace. If you're wanting something and you think about it, eventually it pops up outside, doesn't it? And sometimes it happens the other way around. Sometimes something external you can actually register on the inside. Anybody practicing any type of readings would know that external things can influence you internally. So are you internal or are you external, or are you both? So you see, what you know on the inside gets created on the outside. And you could practice, if you wish, by trying to create certain circumstances by visualizing it internally. Now, you must know of this practice, it's been mentioned often enough. Visualize it and see if it happens. You'll find that it will. It only doesn't happen if it's not in your best interest and it gets blocked. But if you think about it, things can actually happen in your way, but make sure you think correctly. So you see, what you know on the inside and what you access or you believe you access on the inside gets created on the outside. Now, this isn't a really big or difficult concept because I'm sure you've undertaken it yourself or even come across it yourself. But you see, the topic is bigger. It's deeper. So I'm going to just change the words a little bit. So what you know on the inside, I'm going to call knowledge, becomes what you see on the outside, creation, or form, or matter, if you wish. So let's go deeper still. What you know within your one corner of the ocean, because don't forget, you feel like at this stage you are an individual corner and you're trying to get back home to the big ocean. What you know there creates the form that you see externally. So what you know is what you create. So your body is a reflection of past and current beliefs. So the body you have is based on the information that you have stored within your, let's call it your local memory. If you want to say this is karma, this could also be karma. What you have learned becomes your reality. So your life at the moment, including your body, is a reflection of where you are and what you've learned over periods of time. So if you've learned certain things in the past, there is a good chance that this will carry over into your future existences. So let's say you learned the trumpet. Well, there will be an affinity towards trumpet in a future incarnation. If you learned how to draw or paint or to be a nurse, chances are you will feel a connection to these at a later date. You see, depending again how close you are on your return home is how much knowledge you pick up and gain. So when you first begin your journey back to your home towards this understanding that you are part of the great ocean of consciousness or spirit, so when you first begin, you start to pick up all sorts of information and you start to learn and you start to grow and you think, I'm going to learn what it's like to be doctor and I'll learn what it's like to be soldier, etc. And then I'll like to learn the emotional aspects, what love, compassion, anger is. And you learn all of these and you keep learning them. You learn them from one side and then learn them from the opposite side. What it's like to be angry to somebody and what it's like to receive the anger. So you're constantly learning this process until that individual soul starts to say to himself, well, I've either learned everything or this learning everything ain't going to do me no good. And then the soul starts to look inwards. And the journey home truly begins. The journey of understanding who am I, what am I, where am I, how do I work internally. And this journey starts to begin inwards, and here now, whatever you've started to pick up, you start to put down. You start to let go of all these things. Let's say for one half you collect things, assets, and then you start to get rid of them. And there's far more joy that starts to occur. So you start to let go of more and more things. And you will see it yourself within people who begin a spiritual path, start to drop away, either people or even assets they have. Get rid of stuff. And those of you who begin this process of getting rid of things which no longer serve you would know that the more you get rid of, the more clarity you have. The more understanding about yourself that you have. The greater your connection through to spirit. The more opening of your conscious state. Not only do you know things here, but you will know things that are happening there, wherever there is. You're becoming more and more attuned to non-local consciousness or knowledge that exists somewhere else. If you talk about it in terms of knowledge, you would know again that people now know things about themselves. And then they start to know things about others. And the topic becomes broader. And eventually they make decisions that they don't want to learn anything more. They just need to access the knowledge they already have. So here you could say what is individual knowledge eventually gets satisfied by discovery of truth. You see, knowledge to begin with is internal, but eventually it flows out. And it flows around, but truth is always still. So knowledge evolves, doesn't it, as you learn something, and you can always go deeper into it and learn a bit more. Truth. You can't learn anything more other than more truth. So you can't look deeper into 1 + 1 = 2. But you can learn what 2 + 2 is. So let's change again. Let's give the analogy another way. To begin with, you start learning about anything external. And it constantly evolves and constantly changes. Then you start learning internally. And you find the truth that doesn't exist. Well, you perceive it doesn't exist externally, but it exists everywhere. You see, this is exactly the same way of describing mankind's or the mind's journey through the mental world, the astral world. Often people say, what's spirit world like? And they say, well, you learn all this stuff and then you learn a little bit more and then you learn a little bit more and you pick up all this information, your vibrational rate goes up. Well, that's true, but eventually your vibrational rate will go higher by not learning certain things, by letting them go and dropping it away. You see, this is the state also of meditation, isn't it? You try to learn it, you try to do it, and eventually you've got to stop doing it and let it happen. So truth then is the core. Knowledge, although it's everywhere and infinite, can always look deeper into it, can be very according to the person who's observing and who's trying to discover. And knowledge will create what you look like, your form. But you see, that knowledge, when you look around it, it also creates the form of plants and trees and rocks and buildings. You can't have a building if someone, right at the very beginning, didn't have the knowledge of how to make a building. The knowledge of how to build it, not just how to design it. And there's certain truths, isn't there, within that structure. It has to satisfy certain things, doesn't it? Like, can it be wind resistant? Can it hold enough weight and all that stuff? So you see, it's knowledge that gives form. And it is consciousness that observes the form, because it watches the knowledge. So again, I've got to get a little bit deep. Truth is a part of the soul, but knowledge is something the soul uses. And eventually you've got to let that go. So here you have the great phrases of you know nothing. I don't need to learn anything. Be still and know. There's lots of them. Anybody practicing this type of mediumship, when you are trying to do it, you ain't going to do it. When you stop trying to do it, the information will be there. This is what's meant by let spirit do the work. Doesn't it come from somewhere deeper, this knowledge, this understanding? The medium just needs to let the mouth and the tongue flap around. The knowledge is always there. But eventually your journey will be, knowledge will not satisfy you anymore. You want truth. And if you remember again, and I'm connecting this to some other talks, some other time, and that is Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss. We'll talk about the bliss bit some other time. So it all begins to connect together now, doesn't it? You see, these talks have a consistency through them. You can listen to any little part, but they are all part of one whole. Every part brings you back through to the understanding of who you are. The journey of releasing the spirit into the world. So if you wish to improve any type of connection and communication, which you may call, let's say, psychic or mediumship, in all the forms, let the answer come from deeper. Let the answer come from right down deep. And don't let knowledge get in the way of truth. What I mean is, stop thinking about it. It's been said 100 times, it's you that gets in the way. When you get in the way, it becomes, let's say, problematic, potential for error. When we do it, we access something a little deeper. And we talk about things that you will never know in terms of why we are talking about it that way. So you see, what you will look like and your personality in your next life is already inherent within this life. You're creating today your body of, let's say, in 100 years' time. You see, that corner of the ocean that you think you are is trying so hard to get everything in order to learn, to develop, to grow, so it can go home to be part of the grand ocean. But you see, it's already there, isn't it? It's already there. It's already part of the big ocean. It just thinks it's a corner. Thinks it's just a little bit. Yet it's got everything it needs. So a long time ago, somebody asked me, is it possible to do miracles? To disappear here and reappear there? Let us say on the other side of the world, or to do certain types of healing, or make a mountain move. All of this is very possible. At your level of the body, you will find it impossible. You've just got to stop using body and mind. You want to heal the world? Well, you ain't going to do it. But if you go deeper, access deeper, access right at the deepest level, then you will heal your body. But when you get to that deep point and you understand you may choose not to heal your body. And this is what I mean, you get everything for a reason. And this is how karma can go from one life to the next. Because it don't go via body, because one body stops and another starts 10 years later or something. It's got to be transferred in other ways, isn't it? So your little corner of the ocean is trying to get back to the big ocean. Starts by trying to figure things out externally until it figures it's got to go internally to discover that it's already there. When you look around you now, knowledge is everywhere because it creates every form. Every form. You want to change it? Change what you know. This is why you have to let go. And eventually you'll let go of the desire for form. Didn't we say the journey through the spirit world, you get lighter and lighter and your body disappears and disappears until you're there but you ain't there. Do you remember that? Well, I think you should. This is exactly that process happening. I'm just taking it one step deeper. You see, imagine, well, let's use the actual words instead. Consciousness, or spirit if you prefer, on its biggest scale, picture it like the oceans. It knows of every wave happening in every location. It knows that it's hot in one corner and cold in another. That it's rough and beats against big stone rocks over there, and it's a gentle lap over in the other corner. It holds and creates all life. It's aware that one corner, if you wish, thinks that it's Indian, and another corner thinks it's Spanish. It does not see that that corner thinking it's Spanish is separate, trying to get home. It still sees that it's part of the whole. It's just playing a game in the corner like a naughty little boy. But it don't try to change it, just lets it. And a big wave can pop in the middle. Doesn't affect a thing. This is like a war or a natural disaster where big things occur. It doesn't affect consciousness. The wave goes up, comes down, it's exactly the same. So if you think about all of this, if you can truly think about all of this, and I mean, not just accept what I say, with a little bit of stillness, a little bit of letting go, and looking inwards, you'll see that the events that have happened throughout your life that you say create who you are really just ripples on the ocean that you've labelled and called them Bob or Mary or Paul or whoever. You try it. Try it and find out, see if you can find out where you are. And you'll see that you are purely just consciousness, which in one corner you've called Bob, because you've put a little structure around that corner. And you thought all the experiences are just in that corner. You are the still lake, which gets ruffled up every now and again. That is what a soul is, you see. It believes it's individual when really it is, if you want to call it oversoul, the great soul, or just spirit. All right, your time's up. I'll pass you back to him. See you next week. All right. The understanding of this concept means that you will have to look inwards and eventually let go of the concept of Bob to realize this is the truth. The analogy that I have given, and has been spoken by the other, will show to you the connection of religion and science and spirit. There is no need to change anything. If you do change things, then you will just have a different experience. But you cannot change your fundamental self of the pure consciousness, the pure spirit. You can only change the beliefs which are thought of to be individual. So there is an exercise for you to try. And it's an exercise that nobody will ask you for the answer to, but it is one of awareness. Thinking that you are an individual, the individual often uses the word I, me, mine. Just notice during your day how often you use those words. I, me, mine. I am not asking you to change. I am asking you to recognize. Each time you do, this is the voice of your ego. I am angry, I am rich, or I am poor. This reaffirms the corner of the ocean. Just observe. Now, why would you just observe and not change? The act of observation, the observing, is being consciousness. The observing of what happens in your life is the proof that you are spirit. The I, me, mine is proof of the belief of being individual. So each time you observe, you are aware, let us say aware that you have love in your heart, aware that you have a pain in your tooth. If you offer no judgment, then you are being pure spirit. It is that simple. You will need the reminders to bring you back to that act of observation. And some things you could use to remind yourself of this is every time you walk through a door or you sit in a chair, be aware. Now those are exercises we've used before. Now I hope you will realize why. God bless you all. We will continue our journey next week. I ask you to be aware and see what you observe. But don't try to change anything. God bless.
Thank you, Mark.